Hello everyone. Welcome to today's story. Inside the grand family estate, where chandeliers cast golden light over polished marble, the air was thick with anticipation. Tonight was not just another gathering of shareholders and relatives, it was a battlefield disguised as a banquet. At the center stood Alex, the young CEO whose every move had long been dictated by tradition, wealth, and his formidable mother, Mrs. Lon. Yet, as silence spread across the hall, everyone sensed something different in his eyes. Resolve. With a steady breath, Alex prepared to make his final declaration. It would not be about profits, mergers, or legacies. No, this was about the woman he loved, Tuna, and the little boy Henry who had become his world. But what happens when a man's heart collides with his mother's iron will? Tonight, that answer begins. The silence broke like fragile glass when Alex's voice rose above, "I choose Tuna," he declared, his tone firm, unshaken. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, a ripple of gasps swept across the hall. Shareholders exchanged wary glances, whispers filled the corners, and even the waiters froze mid-step, trays trembling in their hands. It wasn't just a personal choice, it was a public D. At the head of the table sat Mrs. Lan, Alex's mother, her expression carved in stone. Her eyes, sharp and commanding, bore into her son as though she could bend his will through sheer force. For years she had crafted his path. Elite schools, prestigious business deals, carefully arranged social circles. To her, love was not romance but a strategy, a currency for building Dinah. And in her mind, Tuna had no value. A single mother, once her voice sliced through the whispers. "Alex," she said, every syllable measured and cold, "do you realize what you're saying?" "Yes," Alex replied without hesitation, his gaze steady. "I know exactly what I'm saying. Tuna is the woman I love. She is the one I want by my side, and Henry is the child I will protect as my own. Nothing you say will change that." The hall erupted in hushed arguments. Some admired Alex's courage. Others shook their heads, convinced he had lost his senses. One of the board members leaned toward another and muttered, "This could ruin everything. Investors won't accept her." Mrs. Land's hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. "You're not just my son, Alex. You are the heir to everything I built. Our name, our empire. Do you intend to throw it all away for this?" Her words dripped with disdain, as though even speaking Tuna's name would taint her lips. Alex's chest tightened, but he stood tall. "Mother, with your guidance I've built empires. I've learned power, discipline, responsibility. But what you never taught me was how to live with an empty heart. I cannot, will not, sacrifice love for power." Gasps filled the hall again. Some of the younger relatives looked at Alex with wide eyes, admiration shining in them. Others avoided Mrs. Lon's glare, afraid to be caught siding with him. Mrs. Lon rose, her movement slow, deliberate, as if restraining the fury within her. The air thickened, the walls themselves seeming to hold their breath. "So," she whispered, her tone laced with venom, "you've chosen your path. Then prepare yourself, Alex, because I will not let a lifetime of sacrifice crumble at the feet of one woman." The words struck like thunder, echoing across the room. In that moment it became clear this was no longer a family dinner, it was war. Mrs. Land's figure loomed tall as she stepped out from behind the long banquet table, her heels striking the marble like gavel blows. The murmurs died instantly. "If you truly insist on this path, Alex," she said, her tone calm but poisoned with ice, "then hear me clearly. From this moment on, you are no longer the heir to this family's fortune. You will lose the company, the estate, every last benefit of my name. Choose Tuna, and you choose exile. Let us see if love can keep a roof over your heads when everything else is stripped away." The words fell heavy, suffocating the room. Some board members glanced at one another with a flicker of satisfaction. Others recoiled, dreading the fracture of the empire they had pledged loyalty to. Alex clenched his fists. He had expected resistance, but the brutality of her ultimatum shook even him. Still, he refused to step back. "This isn't about wealth, Mother," he replied, his voice carrying defiance. "I never asked for your empire. I only want to build a life with the woman I love. If the cost of love is exile, then I accept it." Gasps once more rippled. For the first time, Mrs. Land's jaw tightened, not with shock, but with rage. Her empire, her legacy, her iron grip on her son, all slipping like sand through her fingers. What Alex didn't know was that, outside the hall, Tuna stood frozen in the corridor, Henry's small hand clasped tightly in hers. She had arrived quietly, hoping to support Alex from the shadows, but the voices from within carried through the half-open doors. Her heart pounded as each word pierced her. Inheritance gone, exile, no future. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered to herself, "Alex, you can't throw away everything for me." Her grip on Henry's hand tightened, torn between running away to save him from ruin and bursting inside to defend the man who had risked it all. At that moment, an older board member, perhaps emboldened by Mrs. Land's fury, rose to speak. "Madam, forgive my words, but this scandal could destroy us. If Alex insists on this woman, perhaps the board must intervene." The suggestion ignited a new layer of tension. Whispers turned to debates, and soon voices clashed in a chaotic chorus. Some saw Alex's stand as noble. Others viewed it as recklessness that endangered them all. But through it all, Mrs. Land's voice thundered above the noise. "No one decides for my son but me, and if he defies me, then he is no longer my son." Tuna covered her mouth to stifle a sob, her heart splitting in two. She never wished to become the reason Alex lost his family. Yet every fiber of her being yearned to fight for their love. The question burned hotter than ever. Should she sacrifice herself to protect his legacy, or stand by him and risk everything collapsing? The hall shook with arguments, but Alex's voice cut through them like a blade. "Enough!" he thundered, slamming his palm onto the polished table. The sudden sound silenced the bickering, forcing every gaze back onto him. His eyes locked with his mother's, unwavering. "Mother, I have respected you all my life. I studied where you told me to study. I led the company as you demanded. I wore every chain you forged from duty and ambition, but I will not wear one that strangles my heart. Tuna is my choice, and Henry is my son in every way that matters. No amount of wealth or power will ever outweigh them." Gasps filled the room again, but this time there was something different. Admiration flickered in the eyes of a few, yet others recoiled, terrified at his audacity. Mrs. Land's hands trembled, though she masked it with a scoff. "Bold words, But words are wind, Alex. When the storms of life tear through your so-called love, you will crawl back to me, broken. And when that day comes, I will not open these doors again. At that moment, the doors creaked wider. Everyone turned. Tuna stood there, pale but resolute, Henry clinging to her side. The little boy's wide eyes scanned the hostile faces, sensing the tension though too young to understand its weight. "Alex," Tuna's voice broke, trembling as she stepped forward. "Please, stop. Don't throw away your family, your legacy, everything your mother built. For me, I am not worth such a sacrifice." Her words were soft, yet they struck Alex like thunder. His heart twisted, seeing her tears, hearing the despair in her voice. He moved toward her, grasping her hands tightly. "You are worth more than everything combined," he whispered fiercely. "Without you, all this, the empire, the respect, the wealth, means nothing. They are empty halls without laughter, without love." Mrs. Lon's fury flared. And what about duty, responsibility? A man's word to his family, his ancestors? You would shame generations for the sake of one woman. Alex turned, his voice rising, burning with fire. "And what is shame, Mother? To marry someone rich but loveless? To build walls of gold while my heart withers? That would be the true betrayal. To myself, to Henry, to the life I want to live." The room buzzed with tension so thick it nearly suffocated. One board member muttered, "If he walks away, the company will fall." Another whispered, "Or maybe it will finally be free." Tuna shook her head, tears streaming. She fell to her knees before Mrs. Lon, her voice pleading, desperate. "Madam, please, don't punish Alex for loving me. If someone must be blamed, let it be me. I'll leave. Just don't take away his family, his future." Her words shattered Alex. He knelt beside her, pulling her close. "No, Tuna. You will not beg. You will not carry this burden alone. This is my choice." Henry tugged at Alex's sleeve, his small voice trembling. "Papa, don't cry." The innocent plea pierced through every heart in the room. Even Mrs. Lon faltered, her eyes flickering with something softer. Fear, perhaps, of losing not just her son but the chance at a grandchild's love. But pride reclaimed her face. She straightened, her tone sharp as glass. "Alex, this is your last chance. Walk away from her now, and all will be forgiven. Choose her, and you choose to cut yourself from me forever." The hall held its breath. Alex's shoulders rose and fell as he drew in a deep breath, his gaze torn between the woman who gave him life and the woman who gave that life meaning. The next step he took would change everything. The silence was unbearable, as if the entire mansion had been swallowed by a storm that waited for one final thunderclap. Alex stood at the center, his hand tightly wrapped around Tuna's, Henry clinging to his other side. Three souls bound together, standing against the towering shadow of tradition and power. His mother's words still rang in the air, "Walk away from her, or walk away from me forever." Alex inhaled deeply, his chest heaving with the weight of centuries of expectation pressing down on him. Then, in a voice steady but heavy with emotion, he spoke. "If love is exile, then exile is the path I choose. If being your son means betraying the woman I love and the child I protect, then I will no longer be your heir, but I will remain a man true to his heart." Gasps erupted again. Some wept quietly, others shook their heads in disbelief. A few, hidden in the shadows, admired him for daring to sever the golden chains that bound him. Mrs. Land's face hardened, but a tremor ran through her hand as she pointed toward the door. Then leave this house, and never return. From this moment, you are no longer my son. Her voice cracked ever so slightly, though she masked it with steel. Tuna gripped Alex's arm, her tears streaming. Alex, maybe there's another way. Please don't let it end like this. Henry's little voice echoed in the stillness. Grandma, don't be angry. The innocence cut through the tension like a blade of light, and for the briefest moment Mrs. Land's eyes flickered with pain. But pride, the cruelest armor, covered it once more. Alex took one step forward, leading Tuna and Henry toward the massive doors. The entire hall watched, breathless, as the heir of the empire approached the edge of everything he had ever known. Would he truly walk out? Would Mrs. Land truly disown him? Or would a mother's heart finally surrender to love? The doors creaked open, the light of the night spilling in, and just before Alex crossed the threshold, the screen of fate froze. The answer remained suspended in the air.
Trong hội trường lộng lẫy, CEO Alex khiến tất cả sững sờ khi tuyên bố tôi chọn Lytuna. Lời nói ấy không chỉ là tình yêu mà còn sự thách thức trực diện với mẹ anh, bà Lan, người luôn muốn gả anh cho một gia đình môn đăng hộ đối. Trước ánh mắt hoang mang của hội đồng và người thân, bà lạnh lùng đưa ra tố ôi thư, hoặc là bỏ Lytuna, hoặc là mất tất cả. Bên ngoài tất cả lặng lẽ, từng lời trái tim cô giằng xé với việc bảo vệ tương lai của Alex ở lại để giữ tình yêu. Khi bước vào, cô cầu xin tha thứ, nhưng Alex kiên quyết không có em. Tất cả chỉ là những bức tường trống rỗng. Cuộc đối đầu lên đỉnh điểm và câu trả lời cuối cùng vẫn bỡ ngỡ.